This is Dana Perla from Cookies for Cures, and you are listening to Two Disabled Dudes.
Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. All right, welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. My name is Sean, and I'm happy to be here with you and Kyle Bryant.
Yeah, baby, I'm happy too. Thanks for saying that, Sean. Thanks for being happy to be with me.
Always. I feel like of all the people in my life, I talk to you more than anybody.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
I'm good with it,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, cool. It's cool. Well, we've got an incredible interview coming up for you today in this episode, something I've been looking forward to sharing. Beth and Cindy Kolbe both got on the phone with us recently, and you may remember Cindy Kolbe. We featured her and her story about the tragic car accident that impacted life for her and the family, and we talked about her book, Struggling with Serendipity, in episode 79. So if you don't remember, go ahead and take a listen, 79. But you don't have to do it right now. You can actually move forward with this episode. Cindy and Beth both join us, and in this interview, we get to hear a bit about Beth's perspective on the accident. So, coming up for you in just a few moments, the interview with Beth and Cindy Kolbe. Kyle, you remember Cindy Kolbe. We had her on last year.
Yeah.
She talked about her book, Struggling with Serendipity.
Yeah, and as I recall, Cindy is only half of the equation, right? Because she talked a lot about her daughter.
Yeah.
So,
and in the episode, we mentioned, hey, we're going to get Beth on eventually. And it's taken us a long time. That's mostly my fault. But we have finally got both Cindy Kolbe back on the episode and Beth Kolbe joining us for the first time. So Cindy and Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Yes.
all right.
Awesome. We've been looking forward to having you guys back. Of course, for our listeners, episode 79 is where we first heard Cindy's story, and we first talked with Cindy about her car accident and the things that have gone on over the last 20 or so years in her life and her book and tour and all these fun things. So if you don't remember that episode, go back, episode 79, check it out. Obviously, what we've got today is an incredible story of overcoming tragedy, and I think that's what a lot of our interviews are about. But what I love about the way we interview and the stories that we share is the bits and pieces of people's journey to make, lemonade out of lemons, right? To find a way to move forward, even though we know life is going to be different. Maybe it's going to be harder along the way. We just do whatever we can to make the most out of it. So do me a favor. Let's hear for a moment from Cindy. Cindy, give us an update. What's been going on the last 10 or 12 months in your life since we had you on the episode last year or on the podcast?
Right. Oh, it was a busy year. The book came out in April, and I am lucky that I was able to do book events coast to coast. And I really enjoyed meeting so many people and connecting with their stories too. And it was a whole humbling kind of experience because I also found so many people that connected with my story and Beth's story.
Okay, and Beth, we of course are so grateful that you've joined us, even after a busy year of. The big thing we mentioned last time with your mom was a wedding. You got married, and I don't even know what else you've been up to. So, for our listeners' sake, will you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, your part of the story, and of course, the most recent exciting events in your life.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Beth. I currently live in Washington, D.C., but, my story with my mom kind of starts back in 2000 with a car accident when I was injured. I'm a C6-7 quadriplegic, so I use a wheelchair to get around. But I'm also, I went to Harvard, went to Stanford Law School. I swam in the Paralympics, and now I'm a lawyer in Washington, D.C. And yeah, as you mentioned, I got married last year to a great man named Dan. And we've traveled a lot, went on a honeymoon to Mexico. And it was a busy year, but really, really fun. It was a great year.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the marriage.
Thank you.
Or the wedding. I don't know. Do people say congratulations on marriage, or is it more
I'm
of a
surviving 7 months?
Yeah, right.
You're still married. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Beth, do you practice law right now? Is that your day job?
Yes, it is. Yep, I work for a large law firm doing healthcare regulatory law.
Awesome.
So that's my job.
Wow, that has to be rewarding. I mean, just with your perspective on the healthcare industry and, the people you meet along the way, that's got to be a rewarding position.
It really is. Yeah, I really love my job. It's so interesting and challenging. It's super busy. I mean, I work all the time. I was working this morning, but it is really rewarding. And I do all of my pro bono work on disability rights. So I've had some really awesome disability rights cases that I've worked on in the pro bono world, which I love.
Wow,
that's wonderful.
That would be rewarding for sure. I'm a question for you, Beth. I wonder, granted, when we're all young teenagers, we have a different perspective on life. Can you remind us again, how old were you when you had the car accident?
Yeah, I was 14.
14, okay. Did you think at 14 or 13, hey, I think I want to do law, like I want to be a lawyer? Or were you thinking something completely different? Or were you thinking anything at all?
Race car driver.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I feel like my mom should answer that question. She might have a better idea of. I think when I was little, my parents used to joke that I was a little lawyer because I would argue a lot. But I didn't have anybody in my family that was a lawyer. I don't think that I really knew what that meant. I think I wanted to maybe be a doctor at some point, but no, I certainly didn't have a clear career path at that point.
Sure. I'm pretty sure my career path has changed 4,700 times since I was 14.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this, the car accident again. Would either one of you maybe give us I don't want to discredit the events, so I know just saying a car accident may be unfair. In your words, can you just give us a recap of what happened, and I'll take that story from whoever is more comfortable sharing it.
I've shared it a lot. I'd be interested to hear Beth.
All right.
Sure.
Us too, but we wanted the mom to say that, not Kyla. Right?
I think my mom is the better writer, and so she has, I think, probably a better words to describe it. But so my mom was driving home from Columbus, Ohio. We were living in Ohio. It's where we grew up. Driving home super late. My brother had a concert that we were driving home from, and I was in the front seat. And she was very tired. It was a long day, and at one point she even told me, "Hey Beth, I'm getting kind of tired. Can you talk to me, try to keep me awake?" I think I did for maybe like a minute, and then I fell asleep myself. And then shortly thereafter, my mom fell asleep, and the car kind of veered, flipped a bunch of times. Everyone was able to crawl out except me. I was, I think I snapped my neck pretty immediately when the car flipped. And I do remember it. I didn't black out, so I recall, kind of the whole step-by-step of my mom realizing what happened, someone pulling over to help us, the emergency crew arriving, and then eventually the helicopter arriving to take me to the hospital. At that point, I black out. I think they start giving me lots of drugs, and I don't really remember too much until I'm in the hospital, for about a week, and then rehab, and the journey kind of starts there.
So what, real quick, just to paint the picture a little more, what were the result like how was it immediately afterwards, immediately being, the next few weeks? I mean, you were recovering, and what were the injuries exactly?
Yeah, so I broke my neck at the C6-7 level. Other than that, no other broken bones or anything like that. I mean, cuts and scrapes and stuff like that, of course. So immediately paralyzed. I think with the swelling and everything at first, your whole body is basically paralyzed. I really can't remember moving much at all at first. But slowly, the arms came back. So currently I can, I have full arm movement, but my hands are affected. So I don't have very much finger movement. And then, paralyzed from about the chest down. But, right after, your whole body's in shock and you kind of don't know what's going on. And I think the injury is certainly worse right away before you get into rehab and the swelling goes down and you kind of start to regain a little bit.
Yeah.
How long were you under care, whether it was, the emergency room all the way to rehab, before you were able to go home and start adapting on your own?
Yeah, I was in the intensive care for, I think, about a week, but my mom can correct me if I have that wrong, about a week. And then I moved to inpatient rehab for about 2.5 months. And it actually, the timing was relatively good because it was about a week or two before the end of my 8th grade year. My teachers all just gave me A's on the finals. I didn't have to go back and take them.
There you go. Nice.
Hey.
Yeah, I was a good student, so I don't know how I would have done otherwise. But regardless, then I had the entire summer to do rehab and get better and not miss school. I think I probably was expected to be in rehab a little bit longer, but I wanted to start high school with my friends. So, as soon as the summer ended, I left inpatient rehab, started going to school, but I continued outpatient rehab for about 2 years.
Oh. That's huge. I'm sure the timing had to be motivating and help you maybe keep your eye on the prize of getting back at your routine of school and hanging out with friends. So that's exactly huge. Beth, questions. We're going to jump right in. What I'm curious about, I know when we talked to your mom, she talked a lot and she shared very openly about struggling with depression and blame and just working through all the different emotions of the accident and everything that came afterwards. I'm curious, from your perspective, was there ever a season of, what were some of the emotional points of view from you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found this question before, and I almost feel disingenuous when I answer, but I truly was not depressed or upset in the beginning. And, maybe that's because I was 14 and didn't really know what had happened. Maybe because I was surrounded by a supportive family the entire time and friends. Maybe because I was on morphine for a while. I'm not really sure. But I truly wasn't depressed. I mean, my mom was the one that was really had the mental health struggles in the beginning. Sure. I think, that's not to say I never struggled. I think once I was back at school and, with my peers, there were definitely moments where I didn't like my body and had to struggle and deal with that. But, I honestly don't know if it was that much different than what a normal teenage girl goes through who doesn't like her body. Sure. Like, I don't know. So there were definitely times when I struggled, but I didn't go through a period of, depression or, blame or, I can't believe I'm in a wheelchair now. I think pretty early on I was surrounded by awesome people in wheelchairs. I was told that it wasn't going to limit my future. And I think I kind of believed that, which is good.
Awesome. So you mentioned this, not liking your body. And of course, I think that's true for any teenager, right? Even like, I mean, as a boy, I didn't like my body, Can you talk to us a little bit about that? How you got to a point where, if we fast forward several years, your mom shared about being on the swim team in Harvard and, putting on a bathing suit and being in a chair and just doing everything involved in being on a swim team. Obviously, I think you had to get to a point where you were pretty comfortable with a lot of parts of you, if not the whole you. So I'm curious how maybe you went through that season or how you got through it, because I guarantee you there are times today where I struggle with it, and I'm willing to bet a lot of our listeners struggle with accepting parts of their physical attributes that maybe sometimes we wish were different. So how in the world did you kind of walk us through that part of the recovery?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's certainly not, I mean, there are still moments where I don't like how I look in an outfit, but I mean, it definitely took time. I think it helped that I was an athlete and, I worked out a lot. I think that definitely helped, not just losing weight, but also feeling comfortable in my body. I mean, you're forced to be in a swimsuit around high school boys. Like it's, you're kind of, when you're in high school, it kind of forces you to be okay. But I still was very uncomfortable, I would say, until maybe even late college, law school, when I got truly comfortable with my body. This sounds kind of bad, but I honestly think part of it was attention from guys. I think that kind of helped me realize that I was harsher on my body than people are from the outside. I think we're often our own worst critics, and we can see flaws that other people don't see. And so I think kind of just growing up and getting some perspective was helpful. Honestly, the swim team world in some ways can not be great for your self-confidence and ego. I think even at such an elite level, so many people have, body dysmorphia issues, and they have concerns about their own body. So it's kind of a heightened environment to be in, where even these beautiful people that other people would never think have any body issues, they're concerned about their own body too. So definitely not a toxic environment, but definitely one where body image is kind of front and center. So I think it was kind of it wasn't until later when I was truly comfortable with my body, which I think part of is just growing up. I'm not sure.
So Beth, you got married last year, which is super awesome. And what did you think when you were going through the recovery and you're like, all right, I'm in a wheelchair. That's going to really limit my opportunities, and it's going to change the way guys see me and the way that they see their possible future with me or whatever. How did that go for you? Yeah,
I truly didn't think about dating at all until probably late college. I think I was still so focused on myself and my recovery and getting healthy. Even though at that point I was independent and pretty healthy, I think I was still kind of adapting. So it wasn't. I think I was a bit of a late bloomer in that way. But I was actually quite surprised at how easy dating was. I mean, I did online dating for a period of time in Washington, D.C., because all my friends were doing it. And I really struggled with that. I was like, someone's going to see my picture and just automatically swipe, negative, because they have so many other options. And at that point, I'm very comfortable with myself. I know that I'm a great partner and, interesting person. But the thought of doing online dating where it was just so easy to judge people, from a picture immediately, I struggled with it. But all my friends were doing it, so I decided to jump on too. And I certainly had a few weird experiences where guys would ask, weird and inappropriate questions. And I'm sure many people did swipe negative based on my picture. But I think I was surprised at how many just like good people who, were just interested in my bio and gave me a shot, I guess. And I had some fun dates. Not everyone was a winner, but that's how I met my now husband. So I think it worked out well.
Cool.
Cindy, one of the questions I remember asking in episode 79 was whether or not you had the expectations that Beth would be able to move forward and go to school and have a job and get married. And I remember we specifically talked about getting married, and you had mentioned you never saw that as a barrier. Maybe other things would be concerning, like, having children or succeeding in school or just, finding a job that was flexible and accommodating and encouraging. But you had said marriage, no problem. So I'm curious, from your perspective, Cindy, what was it like last year walking through the wedding with Beth and seeing her come down the aisle and do the whole wedding thing? What was that like for you?
Yes, I never doubted that she would get married and have a family if she chose to. And that part of the disability I never thought would be limiting in that way. But it was also partly because of who she is and that she wouldn't let it limit her.
I think that's huge, especially from a mom's perspective. To be able to experience those things with your daughter is pretty rewarding, I'm sure.
I agree.
Oh, yes. Dress fittings and a lot of the wedding prep, so it was really fun.
Beth, you mentioned the book, and we did talk about it briefly in the beginning, but let's go back to Cindy's book, Struggling with Serendipity. Cindy, you mentioned being on tour a lot last year and connecting with a lot of different readers that read your story and found ways of moving forward because of the picture of hope that you painted, if you will. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that experience has been like now that you're, a year into it? I think when we had you on the first time, it was still fairly fresh. What about now? What is the tour been like, and what has it been like being able to connect with the other readers that are finding hope in your story?
The best part of the book is connecting with people. Mm-hmm. And I've enjoyed that in several different ways. People contact me through my blog and from reading the book, from the events. And I've also been able to connect with different nonprofits that are involved with mental health and disability. So that part has been rewarding. One of the reviews says, "We can live without many things, but living without hope is damn near impossible." Cindy and Beth's story reminds us that no matter the circumstances or diagnosis, with hope and love, joy is possible and life is worth living. I am simultaneously challenged and inspired by their shared journey.
Wow.
This was written by the founder of Giving Voice to Depression, and it just reminds me, I just feel fortunate to see my book in print in 2019 and to be able to share a message that connects with people.
That's huge. I love the endorsement. That's good. I've always been a believer that there's always a reason to get up the next day and move forward, right? Granted, I have not broken my spine, and sure, I don't know what a lot of pain is like or a lot of loss, but I'm with you. As long as you can find some forgiveness and some peace and hope, there's so much joy in the little things. Whether you go off to Harvard or not, whether you become a lawyer or not, whether you get married or not, there's still so much to life. And we just maybe have to work a little bit hard sometimes to find what those little things are. So
yeah, and I think that we all struggle with expectations, right? We have certain expectations for our lives. And like Beth, for example, you never expected to get injured like this, but it sounds to me just from talking to you that you really love your life. You love your husband and your mom and your job, and there's so much that, and all this stuff, it doesn't have to do with getting injured, but it certainly has to do with seeing past that and seeing everything that life has to offer despite whatever happens to you. And I think that's really amazing.
Oh, thank you. I completely agree. I mean, I do love my life, full stop. I think that my life is richer because of my disability and my experiences and kind of the perspective that that's given me. At the same time, there are challenges and life is hard, but life is hard for everybody. There's, everyone has challenges. So there's so much to life that I get to experience that, makes me so happy. And some is related to the disability and some is completely unrelated. So it's it's just kind of a feature of my life, but not the defining characteristic.
So Beth, one more thing I wanted to dig into a tiny bit here before we wrap up is you had mentioned pro bono work in the disability space. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Why do you do that? And what does that pro bono work mean to you?
Yeah, I pretty quickly on after my car accident was introduced into the disability community through regional support groups, spinal cord injury support groups at first, and then kind of on a broader national scale. I went to some national youth leadership network kind of conferences. One was in DC. And then my first time where I spent the entire summer in DC was through the American Association of People with Disabilities, AAPD. They have their internship program for college and now also graduate students to spend a summer in DC. And not only are you working in DC that summer, but you're also kind of part of this internship community where they have a lot of events that talk about the history of the disability rights movement. You get to meet with so many great leaders in the movement. And so all of that is just to say I've loved and really gotten a lot out of being part of the disability community. And so it's very important to me that I do give back in some way. I mean, my mom has been doing that so much now through her mentoring of other parents of kids with disabilities. I've done some mentoring in the past, although less now, just given how busy my job is, but I carve out time in my job to do the disability rights pro bono. And that has taken a variety of forms. Some of it we just will be kind of the legal support for certain disability nonprofits. But then in other cases, we actually represent individuals with disabilities to get certain benefits. So like hearing aids or cochlear implants or certain types of covered devices and services will kind of fight the agency to try to get coverage for those items.
Sure.
So it's very important to me. I enjoy doing it, and it's such a small thing, but it's so important to me, I think.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's a part of life for everyone. If you're able to recognize how much other people have given to you and you can figure out how to give back, I think that's a really important part of being happy and just being part of a community and knowing that you're valuable. I think that's really awesome and something we can all learn from.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even now I have great mentors in the disability community that I look to for career advice, life advice, and I enjoy being able to give back in some way at least. And, I also recognize my privilege. I mean, I've had great family support from day one, and we had we're middle class, but we still had resources, and my job gives me additional resources. And I know a lot of people with disabilities don't have those same resources and opportunities. So that's another reason why I think it's important that I give back.
Wonderful.
So, Beth, you, I just heard you say the word advice somewhere in there. So I'm curious, I'm putting you on the spot, take a minute if you need it. But is there any advice you would give our listeners that are up against any element of what you've been up against, whether it is spinal cord injury or, an unfruitful dating life or whatever it may be? What advice would you give somebody who's maybe close to your age or even a teenager up against what seems to be the end of the world?
I would say to take risks and get involved. I think it's kind of a theme of some of the things I've already said, but I think my parents were so good at kind of plugging me into the disability community early on and making those connections and just getting out. I mean, there was no question that I wouldn't participate in extracurricular activities and be part of school. Those were all just kind of given. And I think that's a large part of, or that's largely because of my parents' support. And I think when you have a disability or a difference, it can be easy to go inward and, not go out as much or be as much, be part of the community as much. And I think that, that can be a struggle. And some days, of course, you're not feeling well. Of course, you stay home, and that's fine. I'm not saying you have to force yourself to go outside every day. Certainly when it's cold and snowy in DC, I'll spend days at home. But, it's important to kind of be involved and get out there and make connections, whether that's in a podcast like you guys are doing or otherwise online or, out in the community. Any way I think is really important.
I like that.
Beautiful.
I think that's great advice. I think that, it's easy to be comfortable with our own space and our own, just staying to ourselves, right? Sometimes, but it's really important to be conscious of the fact that we need to be reaching out and we can expand our lives so much more if we do reach out. So that's wonderful. I like it.
Well, both of you have been fabulous. We were so honored to have you both join us, and Beth, to hear your side of the story and to hear a little bit about what you're doing today. I am encouraged just hearing what you are doing and how you're moving forward, and just excited about the connection that we've made with you guys. So thank you very much for being here. I do want to remind our listeners of Cindy's work and her website, strugglingwithserendipity.com, all spelled out. there you can find the blog that Cindy mentioned, and of course her book, and all kinds of different ways to connect to Cindy and her events. And maybe you want to book her for an event, or have her on your podcast or whatever. There's lots of good stuff there. Before we go, Cindy, I do want to give you an opportunity, or even Beth, any last words that you want to share with us or our listeners before we go?
Sure, I'll go first. I just want to say thank you guys so much for having us on your podcast. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Of course.
And just a final thought about community and giving back. There are so many different kinds of communities, and one of them is the mental health community, and that is something that has been important to me in learning to accept mental illness and move forward with it. So that was something else I just thought I'd add that might be helpful for anyone, whether or not they have a disability.
And Cindy, if I remember correctly, I'm assuming you're still happy to hear from readers that might be struggling, or listeners. I know that you mentioned mentoring and just connecting with people. So I assume you're still open to different notes and emails and inquiries?
Oh, definitely. And
Awesome.
That information's all on my website.
Wonderful. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We wish you both the best in all that you do. And if we have any law issues, I'm calling Beth.
Sure.
Well, I guess I should say legal issues. I'm calling Beth. I feel like we're making a bunch of new friends over the course of our podcast. We got connected with Cindy about a year ago, and now hanging out with Beth on the phone as well. And Cindy follows us, and we follow her on social media. In fact, Cindy is one of those people that we are sending Jeremy Coward's book to. So nice. Not only does she listen and follow along, but she's a part of the journey as well. So a lot of fun, and I'm really grateful that the two of them got on the phone with us not too long ago.
Yeah, that's that's probably my favorite thing about doing the podcast, is just connecting with so many people.
Yep, agreed. My life is richer, I think. Okay. Moving right along. Of course, as you know, it's time for thank you notes. It's time for the expression of gratitude. Kyle and I both believe in the power of gratitude, and just having a grateful mindset allows us to just, put things in order in our minds. So today, I'm going to say thank you to a group of people, Kyle. This is not an individual.
Okay.
With the recent and current state of, the general public.
Yeah.
I
know what you're talking about.
Working in the supermarket industry, things have been, tense. But a lot of fun, for sure. In fact, maybe we'll chat more about this soon. But I actually want to say thank you, not just because they're current events, but this is true on any given busy day, whether it be a holiday or a weekend or whatever. I want to say thank you to the folks that visit their supermarket and respect the express checkout process.
Oh, that's awesome. So, 15 items or less or something?
Yeah, whatever it may be. Some stores do 10, some do 15, whatever it is. It's 15, we'll just say 20 items or fewer.
Okay. Got it.
And there's always some people, that don't really pay attention to the sign-in, and I get it. We've all done it once or twice, or we're taking our time counting coins instead of just swiping the card and moving on. Like, we just slow the world down. And I'm not saying thank you as somebody who works in the industry. I'm just saying thank you as somebody that visits the grocery store too. I don't want to be stuck behind you and your 87 groceries. Like, go to the other line. So
yeah, and especially right now, I bet people have huge orders.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah, they're not small.
and so, like, 15 items or less is awesome.
Yeah, and to going off that point, some people are coming in just for a couple of things. So not everybody's stocking up. Some people just need one thing or just need lunch. So I think for the folks that graciously kind of quote unquote adhere to the best practice there, I want to say thank you.
Nice. I like it.
So your turn.
All right. Well, it was 75 degrees outside today.
Beautiful.
For the first time this year. And I went for a ride on my catch hike. And I'm just really grateful for that machine. Nice. So my thank you note is for Paulo Kamasmi. He is the inventor of the catch hike. And so my note says, Paulo, thank you for inventing the catch hike. Your vision allows thousands of people to access cycling and fitness who wouldn't otherwise have been able to. Your contribution to the world is immeasurable, and I admire the way you take care of your people. And also, thank you for your continued contribution to the FA community. Catch Hike is an amazing sponsor of Ride Ataxia and the Ataxian Athlete Initiative, and so for that we thank them as well as just the amazing machine that they provide. So thank you, Paula.
All right, I like it. Well, as always, thank you to our listeners for being here today, for tuning in. And there needs to be a sign off, but I don't always want to be the one to
that thing.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Find us online at twodisableddudes.com and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our friend and audio producer, Jake Tompkins.